It's Sunday night, and it's not the Ed Sullivan Show. It's the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast, which has been gone for a bit, but we're back. And we're going to take a look at the week ahead in the long range and see what we can figure out going forward. The Joe and Joe Weather Show, brought to you by Tempest by WeatherFlow. Get the revolutionary Tempest weather system, and you too can join the fastest growing observing weather network on the planet. Weather Station makes a great holiday gift for the weather enthusiast in your life. The link is pinned to the top of the chat board. It's also on the descriptor to this video. Tempest is an affiliate of the Joe and Joe Weather Show. And if you actually, it's not pinned to the top of the chat board. I got another link pinned to the top of the chat board. I'll get to that in a second. But if you do decide to make a purchase of anything on the Tempest website, use the coupon code want a weather station, and if you do, get
10% off.
a little pause there. It's always good to do a little pause for dramatic effect. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to tonight's Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast. We've been off since last Wednesday. Just a little quick shameless self-promotion, if you want to call it. The link that's pinned to the top of the chat board is an Amazon link. So if you shop on Amazon and you use this link, because Amazon is also an affiliate of the Joe and Joe Weather Show, you can make purchases, do your searches, make some purchases, and Amazon throws us back a little coin, not out of your pocket, but out of theirs. So it's an easy way to support the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast and everything else that Joe and I do all over the internet, or whatever they call it these days.
Well,
So
it's nice to be back.
yes, I drove to Baltimore last night and stayed with my daughter, and then got back on the road this morning. Uh, I will tell you, Joe, there's a general rule that and I think you will relate to this, because you have this sort of, with certain things you have, like I do, you have a certain fatalistic view of life. If anything can go wrong, it will. So I have observed in my many road trips, and it's a true fact, okay? It's a true fact, Joe, that if you are driving on a road and you are looking for a gas station, you will find that all the gas stations are on the left, and all the places that you want to eat are on the right. Of course, you're not hungry. You want a gas station on the right, so you don't have to, you know, get on a clover leaf on a highway and go around and around to get to the other side, or do some sort of maneuver to get there. And then um, you will find that on that same road, when you travel it in reverse, the gas stations now are on the left again. Somehow they're now on the other side of the street, and the places to eat are on the right. Now, if you were looking for a place to eat, the places to eat would be on your left rather than being on your right. And if you are both hungry and need gas, you will find that you will be on a road where there are no gas stations. Clean to Cincinnati. And that's kind
Oh,
of what I went through today, but I managed it.
and how far in terms of in terms of miles, but also in terms of hours from Baltimore or Balmer to
Well,
where you are in northern Georgia?
all right, so from Westchester County to Baltimore, yesterday it took me about, I had to make two stops, but it took me about a little less than 4 hours,
That's pretty good.
which is pretty good. And in fact, if it wasn't for the traffic on the Major Deegan and the getting on the GW Bridge, I probably could have, without speeding, I could have done it in 3.5. And it helps that my daughter lives in Baltimore. She's basically right off 95 in the harbor side. So it's you get off the exit, you go down a couple of blocks, and you're at the water, and you're there. So there's that. And then from Baltimore to my house in Georgia, it took me with now I made 3 stops, including a stop at a Hardee's with the slowest people you could possibly imagine, and I was the only customer. It took them
Wait a
15
minute.
minutes.
Did you say Arby's or Hardee's?
Hardee's.
Hardee's.
Took
Okay.
took them 15 minutes to do my order. I was the only one there. Okay. Anyway, that took me about 10 today with stops. It took me 10 and a half. So,
Oh.
that's a little tough, but I've done it where I've gone straight through and uh, stopping off at Baltimore and spending the night there for free is a big plus. Is a big plus. I will not tell you about the obnoxious hotel I stayed at with the obnoxious. Oh my God, Joe! I've stayed in hotels where the entire hotel room was smaller than the bathroom that this hotel room had.
Yeah.
Okay, and what made it worse was so it did, my brother had points, so he was able to didn't cost him anything. He used his points. These rooms go for $600 a night. Okay, $600 a night. So I get there and I asked them, to check it in. Everything's already taken care of. I said, so could I have what's the Wi-Fi password? And the guy at the desk says, um, when you go online, when you go on the internet, you to click on our wireless, a page will come up where you can register, and then you just pay the daily fee for the Wi-Fi. And I said, daily fee? You charge $600 a night for a room, and now you want me to fork over? You want me to pay $10 a day to use your Wi-Fi? It was $33 a night to park your car. On top of that,
What hotel is this? Or did you not want to mention what?
I don't want to say. I'm not trying to embarrass them because I'm in any way. I mean, it's a luxury hotel, so I I understand. People, most of the people that go there have make stupid money, and I mean, I don't make stupid money. I'm just stupid. But my definition of stupid money is the people who could light their fireplaces with $100 bills. I don't have that luxury. I'll tell you off camera which one it was. It was beautiful, though. I mean, the room was pristine. I mean, it was gorgeous. You'd want to move in just for the bathroom. You didn't even want to leave the bathroom. It was so beautiful.
Well,
All right. Anyway, um, welcome to everybody. You've been most patient. I know we've been sort of yapping away. I'm trying to unwind. When you've been driving for 10 and a half hours, it takes you a little while to sort of come back down um, back down to earth, but we're glad to have you here on this Sunday night. Those of you lurking in the background, we love to have people join in on the conversation. So if you feel like you'd like to participate, jump on the chat board. I don't bite usually. Joe Rayo doesn't bite except occasionally, and nobody that I know of bites on the chat board, so we're all good. Uh, turn the notifications on when you subscribe to my YouTube channel so you'll never miss a Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast, which is Sunday through Thursday at 7:35 p.m. and the occasional Friday and Saturday when there is a winter or when there's a storm, be it a winter storm or a hurricane, whatever it is. So, um, early December, Joe. Uh, I I, I kind of think I've always seemed to feel like Decembers have this sort of feel of more cloudy days than not. Days where it's kind of drizzly and just kind of yucky, or sort of temperatures that are maybe a little bit on the warm side of normal most of the time, with cold shots that come in between. I kind of feel like that's where we're at here for the start of this month, anyway.
I mean, to me, in recent years, we have had more than our fair share of snow in the month of December. We've had, in fact, a few Decembers where we've had like, for the month, like over 10 inches. In fact, we've even had a few years ago a storm that dumped that much in a single bloof. But the kind of December that we have kicked off, and we're only 3 days in, but looking at the maps and the way things are out there right now, seems to remind me of the Decembers from when I was a kid in the 60s and even into the 70s, where we had, if it snowed in December, it was like, wow, it's snowing in December.
Well, the
I mean, it was
'60s,
not
the '60s had snows in December. It was, the '70s
actually, you're
did.
right. You're right. In fact, we had, I think in the 60s, we had something like 6 or 7 white Christmases. But maybe I'm thinking more like the late 60s or the 70s. But I can remember there was a time in December in my life where we really didn't have all that much to look forward to in December in terms of snow.
Well,
And then
that
things
that's
started
that's
changing
when
later.
that 30-year stretch of normals when they calculated that the average snowfall for December used to be around 6 inches, and it dropped all the way down to, like, I don't know, 2.9 or something. Now it's back up again, in the somewhere in the fives, if I remember correctly. The thing with December is that if you look statistically in the month of December, what skews the numbers, what skews those normals higher is the tendency for some big snowstorms that have occurred in the month of December, as opposed to maybe you get deeper into the winter months with January and February, where, yeah, you do get you get big storms during those months, but you also get perhaps a peppering of weaker events, and it just seems like, there've been some hefty big snows, the Boxing Day storm, etc., that that kind of skews the numbers higher than you other. I mean, it all counts, but I'm just saying.
And in fact, Quincy McCoy mentioning that in 1989 in North Carolina, snow around Christmas time at the coast and ice brought down 2 TV towers near Raleigh. If I remember correctly, that December was an exceedingly cold Christmas, but too cold. If you like snow up here in the New York metropolitan area, there were in fact a few cases that looked like we were going to have a major snowfall, and the cold air was just too much for it, and just rushed most of those storms to our south. And yeah, the Carolinas, the Virginias, they got the snow, and we hardly got anything.
Yeah. Well, the month's just getting started. There's a long way to go, obviously. It's only the third, and a lot can happen. I always sort of look at December as what I used to refer as the month where the switch gets flipped. Sometime around the third week of December, it seems that oftentimes we flip into a pattern that tends to hold for most of the winter. So, we'll see if that doesn't always work out that way, but it's worked out enough times where I've gotten into a habit of looking for that pattern flip around the third week or so of December. So we'll see where this takes us. On the satellite tonight, a couple of things of note. Uh, by the way, I really have not paid much attention. I still see that there's a lot of clouds over much of the Northeast uh, at the moment, and I'm thinking, you probably didn't have a picture perfect day up in eastern Pennsylvania to southern New England.
Not only did we not have a picture perfect day, I mean, we had a fair amount of rain. Maybe Mrs. Rare could look at the rain gauge and type in on the chat board exactly how much we had, but it was a dreary, dull, dank day with cloud cover, rain. Now we just have kind of a misty drizzle out there and also some areas of fog as well. And temperatures are going to be rather mild tonight, Joe. Right now it's around 43, 44. Don't expect temperatures to drop all that much locally. We'll probably have, by the standards of early December, a relatively mild night. And tomorrow, temperatures will approach 50. Although I think maybe the trend will be later in the day tomorrow that we'll start seeing temperatures drop or diminish somewhat, leading into a colder weather pattern for Tuesday and Wednesday of this week. And then just as quickly as it gets cold, it looks like it's going to warm up again just in time for the end of the weekend, the upcoming weekend, or at least the start of the upcoming weekend.
We got a pretty decent subtropical jet here that runs from the subtropical Pacific across Mexico through the Gulf states, the southeast, up the coastal mid-Atlantic to southern New England, and you can also see this rotation that's spinning around in the Great Lakes. So we're just sort of waiting for this to kind of force everything out to the east. A couple of minor systems out in one in the plains, another one in the Rockies, another one off the coast of the Pacific Northwest. Uh, in spite of the fact that we did have a few runs last week that were trying to make a case for something in the middle part of this coming week in some areas in the uh, from southern New England down to Carolinas. There were a few runs that had snow in there. There were a few runs that had accumulating snow. And if you think back to last week, one of the things I said was that if you were going to see an upper air pattern than with what was being shown, if anything, it was going to come out looking flatter rather than looking more robust, flatter and further east, and that's pretty much how it's playing out this week. I really don't I don't see much of anything happening during the work week at least.
Now it looks like a fairly quiet week coming up with of various or varying amounts of cloud versus some sun. And again, colder weather coming our way in the middle of the week, and then later in the week we warm up some. The next chance for any significant precipitation. And by the way, Mrs. Rayo said that in our rain gauge here in Putnam Valley we had 0.65, or just about 2/3 of an inch of rain. But the next round of rain may not come our way until next Sunday. And again, next weekend, as has been the case this weekend, has been, by the standards of early December, relatively mild.
I'm trying to load the watches and warnings map. Finally, here it comes. We do actually have much of the state of Maine is under a winter storm warning right now, except for the far north and the far south of the state. But just every other count, except for maybe about three or four counties, every county in Maine is under a winter storm warning. Also, the northern part of New Hampshire and even into northernmost Vermont and a couple of counties in northeastern New York State. And there's some winter weather advisories surrounding that. Maine's actually been doing fairly, so far, about the only state in the Northeast that outside of the lake effect that happened last week. Um, there's been a fair amount of snowfall in the last few weeks in the great state of Maine.
Yeah, and I've noticed that too. And we noted about a month ago how in South Central Canada, that southern tier of Canada had been cold enough for producing some areas of snow. Maybe that'll pay a dividend for us. Maybe not necessarily in December, but with the El Nino expected to weaken dramatically at the start of next year, and all of this cold and snow that is locked up over parts of southern Canada, and now, as you just mentioned, Joe, up across Maine, I mean, that may work, in favor of the winter weather and snow lovers as we get into the new year.
Yep. We've got winter storm warnings up also for parts of western Wyoming, north, excuse me, north central Colorado, even some high wind warnings up in southeastern Wyoming, parts of northern Utah, northeast Nevada, avalanche warnings in the Cascades in that fabulous bluish color that you see there on the map, and lots of flood watches up for coastal Washington and Oregon, and even also for parts of eastern Washington and northwestern Idaho. So it looks like maybe getting some valley. Those are probably in valleys that you're probably seeing those flood watches up. But heavy rains on top of some heavy snows that fell in some places there last week in the mountains. It's not a good recipe. By the way, we should mention too, Joe, Hawaii got some big rains last week, and they had snow on. They had their first snows on the top of Mount. What is it? Kilauea.
Well, Kilauea, or they also have the two volcanic cones, Mauna Loa
No, maybe it was Mauna Loa
and Mauna Kea too. But
or Mauna Kea.
those
It
mountains
was
go
one
up.
of those three.
They go up. They go up to, like, in some cases, up to like 14,000 feet. So
Hmm.
you can get some of the white stuff up there.
You sure can. And the forecast for the areas in Maine with regards to snowfalls in northeastern New Hampshire and through much of the interior Maine, 10 to 12 inches in many areas, even up in the areas to the north where they got winter weather advisories, 3 to 6 in those areas. And down near the coast, it's just basically a coating to an inch or two. But it's a it's a fairly robust little system here that is impacting parts of northern New England. Amounts go down a bit as you go further west, although I don't know what that 14 is in New York State, but I imagine it's some mountaintop somewhere in the Adirondacks there. 14, uh, but most of the areas surrounding that, basically a coating to an inch, even indicating a coating to an inch down into uh, southeastern New England. Although I haven't really checked on, let me just check to see what's going on in Boston just for laughs. I got to imagine it's just not doing much of anything at this moment. Um, Boston is 46 with light rain. So I don't know why they have. See, let's see if I can get a reason for why they have what they have. Because they're going for a chance of some snow. Apparently, not from the stuff tonight, but a chance for a little bit of snow tomorrow night and also Tuesday night into Wednesday. It's a small chance, but I guess that's why they have that shading there because the digital forecast map, when I have it set for the entire period going into Wednesday evening, but I can shorten that to just say Monday afternoon, and that should take out the stuff that you see down in Boston. And in fact, it has. So you can see here that this really is what's left with what's going on there during tonight. And as we check out the radar, we'll see that there's still precipitation going on in upstate New York, all the way back to western New York, and that's rain. And then you've got with cold air that's sort of wedged into northern New England, the moisture moving in there, getting some snow there. So the system's taken forever though to clean house. It's not a well-developed system where it just sort of moves along. So it's spread out over a fairly large area. So uh, getting it to clear out is going to require a little bit of work.
I just saw that you have the Dorchester, Massachusetts forecast up. Dorchester's just south of Boston, and they've got snow for Tuesday night and Wednesday. But I'm assuming that the snow that they are indicating on their forecast is going to be pretty much like snow showers or maybe scattered flurries. Nothing in terms of a steady snow that.
No, it's the that upper trough that's there's that upper trough that's coming through. Little curl there in East Kansas and northwest Missouri down into southeastern Nebraska. Little upper air disturbance rolling through there. Some light rains along the southeast coast and over the Florida Panhandle. We've got some showery rains in parts of California, northern Nevada. Turns to snow in the colder air in northeastern Nevada and on up into northern Utah, southeast Idaho, and you can see there's rain there in the Pacific Northwest. Next 5 days doesn't show much in terms of precip. It's front end loaded up in northern New England with a half to three-quarters of an inch tonight into tomorrow morning with the system moving through now. But just about everybody from southern New England down to Virginia, Joe, it's either no precip for the next 5 days or just a couple of hundredths. And it's bone dry in the southeast and across the Gulf states, the entire southern half of the United States. No precip in the next 5 days. And the only place where it's really substantial is up in the northern Rockies and in the Pacific Northwest, particularly the Pacific Northwest, where we're talking several to many inches possible in the next 5.
And you're absolutely right. There's really the what little precipitation is being generated for our area is again probably not going to be until next weekend, next Sunday. Much of this week, save again for maybe a flurry or maybe just a flake or two in the air Tuesday and Wednesday with the resurgence of cold weather. It looks like it's going to be a fairly dry week here.
Yep, it sure is. By the way, I just wanted to thank Bobby Whitaker, who actually hit super chat back on when I posted the link to the show. I did that. When did I do it? Friday night, I think, for the Sunday show. I posted the link up, and the chat board was open since Friday night, and Bobby jumped on very early, and he hit super chat. So I thanked him then, but I want to thank him publicly for hitting the tip jar. WPC showing a fairly high probability of a very high probability, I should say, of at least two in those areas where we have winter storm warnings up in northern New England. And I'm going to just change this to the probability for at least 8 and see what we come up with. But even here, a fairly large area in northeastern New Hampshire, northern Vermont, and on up into Maine, where interior Maine, where we see 50% or higher probability, and even an area of 80% or higher probability for at least 8. And if we change that to 12, well, that dark green is like 20 to 40% in that area there in what is that? I never know what to call this geographic area. Is that northwestern Maine? Is that southwestern Maine? Is that the interior of southwestern Maine? How would you
Uh, I guess Western Maine.
or western Maine? Yeah, but see now Western Maine could is that the
that
area
that
that line that borders with New Hampshire from all the way
yeah,
down to the coast?
yes, you're right.
So
I
would
get
you
what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean it's like it's sort of northwest, but it's not really northwest because
West northwest.
west northwest. Okay, that's a good compromise. I'm sure the folks in Maine right now are going to be really happy that we have decided that this area is going to be known here forward as west northwestern Maine.
And
Okay.
so I think there's an area up in that zone, the Longfellow Mountains, which is probably why they are generating more snow, or the probability of more snow than most anywhere else in the state. And maybe that yellow area is where Mount Katahdin is. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm not big on the geography of Maine.
Now, oh, hold on a second. Accidentally hit what happens when my mouse goes a little crazy. Share Bear. Share Bear Joe hits super chat tonight. Thank you, Share Bear. There's my map. I'm having, when you
Is it
drive for
shared bear or shared bar?
Share Bar. Okay, Share Bar. Well, it depends on how you want to take that. It's Share Bar 117. Either way, thank you
Thank
for
you.
hitting super chat tonight. Most appreciated. I was kind of looking just around. We're sort of in. I think probably the best way to describe the way things are right now. We're kind of in a bit of a no man's land. The Arctic Oscillation is at a minus 3 standard deviations negative, and normally this would, when it's negative like this, usually that tends to favor colder air across, into the United States, but it doesn't seem to be quite playing out that way. And the AO actually is forecast to stay negative, although not at that extreme as we move into mid-month. But I was just kind of looking at the other tellies. You look at the PNA, the Pacific North America Index, from last night's 0Z run. It's a little positive now, but it's actually forecast to go a little bit negative. But nothing. If it's to me, if the teleconnections are sort of inside, say, +1 or -1, that's just sort of, eh. When you start to see deviations that are, +2, +3, +4, or -2, -3, -4, that's usually when the atmosphere is revving up a big storm somewhere. Whether it's in the east or not, remains to be seen. It could be in the west, depending on what the connections are showing. So a slightly negative PNA is just sort of I don't know, blah. And then you've got the NAO, the North Atlantic Oscillation, which is right now 2 standard deviations negative, believe it or not. And that goes to the neutral line and then just sort of sits along the neutral line to the middle part of the month. So I don't know, Joe. That kind of says to me that uh, I don't. It kind of just to me it just we've been kind of in a bit of a snooze fest here lately. I know some of the models are trying to make next weekend's weather system, some sort of strong low with a strong cold front going up the Appalachians and heading up into eastern Canada, the St. Lawrence Valley. I suppose it's possible with teleconnections like this. And oftentimes, when the NAO goes from a negative reading, and then shoots up rapidly toward the neutral line, which it's going to do, according to the forecast, by the time we get to this coming weekend, that's usually a sign of some big pressure changes somewhere. So maybe that's what the NAO is telling us here, that perhaps the system for next weekend might be a bit of a powerhouse as far as rain is concerned.
Well, from what I was able to glean, next Sunday we're going to have some kind of a storm that'll be tracking west of us through the Ohio Valley. They've got a warm front that is going to be approaching from our south and west. That's probably the thing that's going to generate the wet weather that is being forecast for Sunday. And if it's a vigorous system, we could find ourselves with more than just rain. We could find ourselves with, again, bouts of showery rain. Interestingly, that I saw on the chat board, somebody said that in Rhode Island they had some claps of thunder, and there was actually severe weather in parts of east central Pennsylvania earlier today, and yet the folks over at the Storm Prediction Center had no thunderstorms, no general thunderstorms in our vicinity. So it just goes to show you sometimes you can't look at those maps and say, okay, that definitely is because, or is not because we again can sometimes see these weather events that were not expected or to be part of the mix.
Yeah. The I was just looking at the ensembles going forward. I mean, we just see for this week anyway. We've got troughing here in the eastern part of the United States now, and actually it gets fairly deep by the time we get to Wednesday, which accounts for some colder air that comes in for Tuesday night, Wednesday, and Thursday. And we talked about this system where it was just not going to sharpen up, with some prior runs, and you could see how this trough stays pretty broad, and it really doesn't sharpen up much at all. And that is kind of, that's the state of our pattern here. So I would be very suspicious, particularly once you get past day 7 or day 8. I would start to be really suspicious of any models, showing 932 lows in the Gulf of Maine like we saw in that one run last week. So anything that you see that's developed, well-developed systems beyond day 7 or day 8, you should always, take that with a grain of salt. But I think given the way the things have been behaving lately, I would take it with a salt mine full of salt,
Yeah.
because there really hasn't been much in the way of really powerful storms anywhere across the U.S. for the most part. Most of the stuff that we've seen has been more localized and small scale, the lake effect stuff, etc. Now in the West, they're going to get a bit of a break here because you do had all this energy that came in over the weekend. You can see all that blue there. I mean, it's all that troughing there dropping into the western part of the United States over this weekend. Well, they get into a bit of a ridge position with what's going on in the east, but then another trough comes into the west, so the ridge flattens out, and we start to get into a ridge position at the end of this week as the trough in the east pulls out. And this is where the models were trying to make something. You see, there is another deep trough that swings from the Great Lakes to the Gulf states come next Sunday into Monday. So it was from this that some models from overnight and yesterday were trying to show a fairly sizable system. I would just say that going beyond that, once that lifts out, it looks like we're going to be sort of in this really kind of boring west to east flow, a bit on the mild side. Tendency for higher than normal pressures and heights in the east and lower pressures not even in the west. It's more like in the northwestern part of Canada. So we're just kind of going into this. To me, it just looks dull. you know.
I think the problem also is we just can't seem to get the mid and long range models on the same page. I mean, take a look at the European versus the GFS for next weekend. European shows a big cutter, if you will, a storm system that could produce quite a bit of precip. GFS just shows kind of a faux a frontal passage with some rain and snow showers, and in between both of those is our dear friends at the GEM or Canadian model, sort of in between with a frontal low pressure. I don't really know
Yeah, the
what.
18Z now has gone. The overnight runs had a big system. Then the day run kind of went sort of blah with it, and now it's come back on the 18Z run. It matches more with the Europeans' idea, as you said. A deepening low that goes from southern Indiana, pretty well wrapped up on up the St. Lawrence Valley. It's got a 982 low with this massive cold front and a screaming. I mean, next Sunday we'd be blowing away with a south wind ahead of this, with some heavy rains later Sunday into Sunday night, and then turns sharply colder. Actually, I have it's got snow down. This is the kind of setup that's actually for where I am in northern Georgia and in the central Appalachians. This is actually a fairly bullish setup for me if this winds up verifying, because the real cold push, if you look at this upper trough the way it is, the real push is more in the south than it is to the east. And then, by the way, that lifts out. You got more troughing that comes into the west, and we kind of get into this ridge position going into the middle part of the month of December, uh, that carries through the long range period here on the GFS. But again, uh, I'd be a
Scott Patton on the chat board, please, please. He says, Joey's lamenting. He says, why can't we ever see a snowstorm in December? For God's sake, take a look at from the year 2000 up until now. We have been seeing Decembers with epic snowfall. What?
Joe, if it doesn't snow every single day from November 1st to April 30th, it's considered the winter is considered a fail. It's a winter cancel. I mean, I thought, have you not read the Snow Weenies Handbook?
No, well.
I'm on your side with this. It's like,
if you want to see, if you want to see a period in December where it never snowed, take a look at the 1970s and 80s
and 90s.
and 90s. I mean, like there you go. There's your December snow drought. Please, the last 20 years have been like anything but bad for snowfall.
No, it'd be wonderful for snowfalls in December.
It's been incredible.
I don't know. Everybody, snow lovers have very short memories. Once a snow system is done, it's like it's never happened. Okay, you can never get enough. It didn't happen. You can put a foot of snow on the ground, and three days later, somebody inevitably will come out and say, "Oh, those flurries from the other day."
I'm just gonna give you an example. I'll just let's look at the 1980s. This is the month of December at Central Park, the decade of the 1980s. So we got 80, 81, 2.8, 81, 82, 2.1, 82, 83, 3, 83, 84, 1.6. Oh my goodness, 84, 85, 5.5 inches. But then we had 0.9 for 85, 86, 0.6 for 86, 87, 2.6 for 87, 88. You get the idea of what I'm thinking. Now, I'm going to tell you ready for this? Here we go with the 2000s. 2000 to 2001, 13.4. Only a trace for 2001, 2002. 2002, 2003. This is the month of December. Only that 1 month, 11 inches. 2003, 2004, 19.8. 2005, 2006, 9.7. I mean, come on. But 2009 and 10, 12.4. How about 2010, 2011, George? It doesn't snow anymore in December. 20.1 inches of snow in 1 month in December. I think that might have been a record. And it goes on and on and on for these first...
Wasn't a record.
For the first 2 decades of the 21st century, we have had, tremendous amounts of snow. All right. 22, 23, 2022, we had a trace. And 2021, 0.2. But you forgot that in 2020 December, 10.5 inches. So, yeah, maybe we're in a little bit of a lull now. But, I mean, come on. It has snowed. If I tell you, if it snowed the way it has the last 20 years in December, back in the 70s and 80s and the 90s, or Joe and I would have been doing, you know, we would have been jumping up and down
Oh, I
like,
know these youngins have no clue what a snow drought really is. They just don't. You know, I mean, we could go through we could do the equivalent, by the way, of walking 5 miles to school with no shoes on in deep snow both ways. Okay, with regards to snow droughts. So yeah, everybody needs to stop it. Okay, so we need to stop. So this week I could see, you got this low that's pulling out tonight east of the Gulf of Maine and the whole upper air system with it. So of course, let's all drive up to northern Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine and enjoy that. And then there's this sort of upper trough that comes down. So I kind of see where Boston threw in the chance for some snow Tuesday night or Wednesday. It's like, okay, I guess so. If you really, there is a little trough there. And then of course the trough in the Great Lakes with that low in eastern Iowa just weakens. So you got a dying area of light rain and snow down the Appalachians, and then get an offshore low that develops way out to the east. Cold air that comes down the coast. So I would think Wednesday and into Thursday will probably be the coldest days this week. And then we'll start to see temperatures bounce. So we'll bounce up fairly quickly on Friday. Now, again, is the energy coming out of the west, which shows snow in the Rockies, with a low that moves out of Oklahoma and then runs up toward the Great Lakes. It gets really wrapped up there in Ohio. I mean, how real is that? I don't know. I mean, this would bury this if this is literally correct, it would bury Detroit, northwest Ohio, northeastern Indiana, and maybe Cleveland will probably get to some lake effect, and there probably would be some rather impressive lake effect here come late next Sunday in western New York and western Pennsylvania. But it remains to be seen here whether this trough is going to be, a sharp, negatively tilted powerhouse arm that comes around, or is it going to wind up being, or is this overdone? I don't know. I'm not sure. The European, as you said, Joe, the European today kind of went this route. I'll just give it a quick look here, and you'll see it. Sort of did that idea that here comes the low that comes out of the plains, and you see it there. It's got a low, a 90, what is that? A 98 low near Nashville that goes to an 88 low in western West Virginia, and a 78 low near Buffalo. By the time we get to next Sunday night. I mean, that's pretty well wrapped up. I just want to see out of curiosity because I got the pivotal maps up. Let me just take a look here. Hang on just a second. Um, ooh, ooh. I had it set to
ooh,
the yeah no I had it set to the 0Z run from last night. It goes out to 840 hours, but it's only out now to 400 hours, so 402 hours. So it's not worth mentioning. But I have the snow maps up, so let me just go to. I want to go to the 12Z high resolution European, and let's go to the 12Z. I want to change from southern New England. I'm gonna go to let's go to a regional, and we'll go take the Mid Atlantic because that might go far enough west. So this is what the European has. I mean, they have a fairly wide swath out through day 10. Let's take it out a little further. But they've got a fairly wide swath of six to 10 from southern Indiana across northwest Ohio into northwest PA. Okay, I mean, I would have expected maybe they'd give. Oh, it gives me a half an inch, Joe. 0.05. I get a half an inch out of that stuff, out of this, if this system verifies for next week.
I mentioned just a few moments ago about comparing decades. The decades of the 1970s at Central Park, for the 10 years of the 1970s, 1.71 inches of snow on average for the month of December. And out of that entire decade, there was 1 year where we had a snowfall in December, where we had December seeing 5 or more inches of snow. Now, the last 10 years, again, this is that a retort to George, I think, who said, it never snows anymore in December. The last 10 years at Central Park, 3.37 inches of snow average for December. That's almost 3 times more than what we saw in the 1970s. And in the last 10 years, we have had 3 Decembers where at least 5 or more inches have fallen, and 1 December, and that was the one in 2020, where we had 10 or more inches of snowfall. So, no matter which way you slice it or dice it, the month of December is certainly a lot snowier now as compared to the way it was in years past, many years past.
You
So,
have to, you got, you really do have to get. If you look at most of the snowfalls that occurred in the month of December, not all, but if you look at most of the snowfalls that occur in the month of December in the coastal Northeast and particularly in the Mid-Atlantic, you have to you have to get past the 15th of December. The first 15 days, the first 2 weeks of December are not, yeah, every once in a while there's something that it does happen in that time frame, but you really have to get to the middle of the month before you start to see your probabilities go up substantially. So this is December. I feel like I say this every year. Of course, last year it didn't matter because we locked into that horrible that horrible La Nina pattern that lasted like 4 months. We spent the whole winter waiting for Godot, and it just never happened as far as breaking the pattern is concerned. So um, I don't know. I guess I should be a little bit hesitant. I hope we're not, I hope we're not in a place now where we're going to lock into this pattern for 4 months. But um, again, it's the third. So Lloyd, Lynn, who it was, if somebody was it Lloyd something on the chat board says about how about snow for the Mid Atlantic? Well, you know what? It's too early. It's way too early. Okay, so just you gotta everybody keep their shirts on. Oh, keep your shirt on. Oh, I'm
hey,
sorry. I'm just a
we have
little.
86 likes too, by the way.
I'm sorry. What
That's
was
pretty
that?
good.
What was
We
that,
have
Joe?
86 likes.
No, we don't. We have 109.
We do?
We have a
On
hundred
my,
and
my counter, on my counter, it says 86.
no. You're delayed. We have 109, and we didn't even ask for those likes. So thank you, those of you who had hit the like button. A
Oh,
lot of
you're
people.
right. I just updated. I
Yeah.
just updated. There we go.
You need to warn me when you're going to do that, or if you are going to do it, can you just hold it a little bit, just a little bit back?
That's that.
Yeah, yeah. You have a high quality microphone.
Yeah, well, either that or the high quality. Whoops, sorry about that. The
Every
high quality.
time a bell rings, an angel
Yes,
gets his wings.
that's exactly what's itched on the. I don't know if you could read it, but that's exactly what's itched on the bell.
You keep ringing that bell. We'll see what kind of angel hits your wings.
It's a wonderful life.
Oh God, I am. I right now. My words are turning to jelly, and my brain is spinning at 100 miles an hour because you have to understand, folks, when you drive someplace from here, okay, I'm not near any interstate, right? So for me to get on an interstate requires me at the very least to drive, if I want to go to I-85, it's an hour and a half. So I have to drive an hour and a half in on state roads and through the mountains before I can even get into an interstate. Today, because the fastest route to get from if you're coming down from say New York or Philadelphia or Washington or Baltimore, the fastest way to get to my house is to come down 81 and then you take 26 into Tennessee. And then once you get there into North Carolina, you take I-40. But then after you get off of I-40, Joe, you spend the next you're the next 2.5 hours in the mountains on state roads.
Right.
Now, most of the time you can drive 55 or 60 miles an hour, but not when you're on a hairpin turn going up a mountain or down a mountain. Um, so it takes me to do if I drove 60 miles an hour, if I had to drive 60 miles on an interstate, then I could do say 60 miles an hour, 65. Actually, speed limits down here are like 70. So I could do 60 miles in 50 minutes or 50 minutes. But on these state roads that go through mountains, if you want to do 60 miles, it's going to take you it's going to take you the better part of an hour and a half to 2 hours. So I'm kind of loopy right now
Well,
from
why don't we
from
why don't
going.
we have why don't
That's
we just close the Sunday night session so that you can lie down, and I will answer the question of somebody on the chat board saying, "Is there going to be a show tomorrow night?" And yes, there will be. In fact, we'll be on all through next week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday on schedule.
Yes, we have no plans to change the schedule. So um, yes, we will be here the next couple of nights. I'm sorry, Joe.
William Huber,
I'm really starting to lose it here.
William Huber, I'm not going to get an air horn.
Oh, why'd you, Bill? Bill,
Don't encourage him.
Bill, I thought you loved me, Bill, and you're giving him this idea to get an air horn. You want him to kill me? Oh my God. Joe and Joe Weather Show is brought to you by, well, we've got two sponsors working tonight. Tempest by WeatherFlow. Get the revolutionary Tempest weather system. Join the fastest growing observing weather network on the planet. The link is on the descriptor to this video. Use the coupon code I want a weather station, and if you do,
You'll get a big 10% off.
And the link that's pinned to the top of the chat board is an Amazon link. We are an affiliate of Amazon. I am an Amazon influencer. Okay, not that I have any influence, but nonetheless, if you shop on Amazon for your Christmas gifts, we would appreciate it very much if you use the referral link that we pull up at the top of the chat board, because Amazon throws us back a little bit of coin so that we could do our hair every once in a while. And speaking of which, I've got these bangs that my haircut guy said, "Oh, I'm going to leave you with bangs this time, just to give you a little bit of volume." I can't stand them, so I got to go. I got to go hunt him down tomorrow because he's got to fix my hair. And of course, when it comes to hair, no one's hair is more flawless than Joe Rayo's.
Don't make fun of my hair.
No, your hair is fabulous.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. My wife would say it's too poofed up. She hates it. And if it's not poofed up, then she says I look like Flat Top from Dick Tracy.
No, you look like Maharinsas Afghanistan.
Yeah.
What is secret? A cup of henna to a gallon of water.
This is the hairstyle that Ethel Mertz or Vivian Vance had in that one episode where the hair was slicked back.
Okay.
I forgot what episode specifically that was, but it was slicked. It was slicked like this,
Oh, when they were pretending to be like a gang or something, when they were trying to buy the house in Connecticut and they wanted to get the deposit back.
No, I think that might have been the episode with Barbara Eden, actually.
Oh, right, yes, like right, slicked back like what did William Frawley said she has her hair slicked back like the Pekingese dog?
Yeah, something like that.
I forgot the adjective he used. Yes, but the women described it as the hairdo that makes her look like Grace Kelly.
Right, right.
I love Vivian Vance, don't get me wrong, but Grace Kelly, oh my God, was she gorgeous?
Oh well.
She was just.
You remember that line from The Honeymooners? You remember all the great cooks out there?
Right.
Something of France and blah, blah, blah. Grace Kelly's father, and Ralph Crandall says, "Grace Kelly's father. Why does he land in that?"
Right.
He cooked up a pretty good dish.
Yeah. All right. On that note, time to go. All right. So we'll see everybody tomorrow night at 7:35 p.m.